going from Napoli, we got one where it's not quite not working at all, and we got one where we're trying to figure we're trying to figure it out. Okay, so we've got Juric at Roma, we've got Fonseca at Milan. Juric, we always wondered, okay, Juric will take mid-table and provincial teams and overachieve with them. Or he'll get him to a point and then it just gets stale and then he's got to go somewhere else. Fonseca had, I think people were trying to say with Fonseca, it was just like, okay, the Roma situation, just he had a litany of injuries for whatever reason, and then he goes to Lille and he does more with less, which is what earned him the Milan job, and now it's people are like, huh? Leo doesn't start against Napoli, a big game. Some of these other. I'm sorry, Reno. I didn't wake the baby. Don't start. Reno's on my ass tonight, and I don't know what I ever did to him.
You have a loud voice, Frank. It's off 40.
It's that deep vocal inflection, I guess, right?
That's right.
So, anyway, all right. Probably because I said Allegri would have made the Derby d'Italia boring, and I disagreed with him. That's probably
you got to give it. You got to take it, Frank.
Yeah, it's fair enough. It's fair enough. So Juric might have done a career suicide job in essence, where he will probably never get a big job again. I mean, this is probably the biggest job that Juric is ever going to get, and it's not working out. So let's talk about Juric first.
Yes.
I don't think that he has his style, when I think of his Genoa teams, when I think of his Torino teams, to me, it's rigid. And in order to be rigid, you have to have midfielders that, can play with some bite. And Brian Cristante never struck me as that kind of guy. I don't think Brian Cristante is a good ball-winning midfielder. And some of these other guys, that they're trotting out there, I kind of like Manu Kone. I think he needs more games.
Yeah.
This Pasili, I'm not sure about yet. I mean,
but look how he's using Dybala. Like Dybala, he's using as like for defensive roles, and he's misusing him completely. Like, yes, and it's to your point. Like he's very rigid in his systems, and he doesn't have the players he had at his previous stints where he could play the style he wants. So he's misusing the players that he has now, and it's just a whole clusterfuck because Dybala's working his ass off trying to do the defensive duties, doesn't have enough to go back on the attack, and it's not working, Frank. It's not working.
Well, I mean, and Angelino is not. He's in there. He's in there to cross the ball. He's not in there to defend anybody. He's got some decent center backs. The problem is I don't think that he has good midfielders to protect him. I don't think Pasili's just experienced enough at this level. I don't think Cristante's ever really been good enough. I hated him for the national team.
Cristante greater than Lobotka, remember.
What does that say about Lobotka if I'm not reading Cristante? My goodness. What are we doing here? And then he's got Pellegrini in a deeper midfield position where I think Pellegrini operates better, as a 10, or just off to the left behind a striker is where he operates best. And now you're asking him to cover a lot more ground, which is not really his game. So some of this is Juric has gotten appointed where he has a bunch of square pegs in round holes. And is Roma going to just ride this out till January until he can grab a couple of guys that, are a better fit for what he can do? Or are we at a point where it's not going to matter who he gets? He's not good enough for this level.
Yeah, I just think, and I think we were right about him all along, right? Right when Juric was hired, we said this is obviously not a planned move because you had Mourinho and you went to De Rossi and you went to extend him after he played really well coming at the end of the season. And then 3-4 games in, you got rid of him and you brought in Juric, and it screamed panic move. Yeah. And we said this is not going to work from the beginning, and it could. We were open to change, but it screamed like it was not going to work. And what we've seen, everything we thought was going to happen has panned out so far, and it just seems like he cannot win the big game. And what the trend seems to be, especially in the big matches, is like he plays for Well, he knows rigid defense, right? So he plays for a draw, 0-0 draw from the beginning. And as soon as the opposition scores, it's like, okay, we lost, game's over, and kind of lets the teams that score against them, right? Inter did it to them, last year in the 59th minute, and they go and scored a goal, and they lost that game. This year again, in 60th minute ago, and scored a goal. Moise Kean scores this week in the 9th minute, and they gave up right from then on. They went into lost 5-1 in that game. It's just like he can't win these big games, and I'm talking about sisters type big games, and all he knows how to do is play all-out defense. There's no methodology to how are we going to attack this team, how are we going to break them down. It seems like let's just park the bus, hope for the best 0-0, and get out of here. And it's like, no, that's not how you're going to win in a big club. You have to find a way to tactically break down the teams, and it's like you're not Mourinho. Mourinho could do this. It's different. Mourinho's a different mind. You're not Mourinho. You're Ivan Juric. You got to find a way. This is not gonna. You should be canned. He should be fired shortly if he's not done by Christmas. So, it's not a top manager job that he can't. After this, he should be mid-table or worse in terms of teams he goes for.
It's almost like Roma is that restaurant that had a chef whose menu was shitty, and like the food was all substandard and comes out cold and comes out raw or undercooked or too or too salty. And maybe with Mourinho, salty is a good way to describe it. And then the owner gets rid of the chef. It's the owner's recipes. The chef cooks it. And then they bring in a new chef who wants to do his own menu, and it's wonderful. It's delicious. And the restaurant starts making some money, but then, maybe one bad night, and all of a sudden they can that chef and they go to another chef who is just going to cook the owner's menu, and they go back to the old shitty food. That's pretty much what Roma is right now.
Yeah.
I think under De Rossi, at least it was entertaining, and the players were in place, and it was one of those where you just sometimes have to give it time. You can't just, you gave De Rossi a whole preseason. You let him get his players. You can't just sack him and bring in a manager where the parts don't fit. It's just what it is. So, I think Juric is. But it's an easy thing for the Friedkin group to do because Juric is the fall guy, not the Friedkins. At the end of the day, because they'll say, well, it didn't work out. We'll send you on your way and we'll get somebody else. And it's not, it was somebody said career suicide about Juric. I mean, all right. I mean, but Dominic makes a great point. I mean, Juric didn't get a preseason, and he didn't get to, pick his players. So, so it's, and I think that those were the struggles lie, is that he's now, when you come in mid-season, you're picking up somebody else's project, and you're trying to force them into the way you want to do things. And, and here we're seeing it's not working all particularly well. Now let's go to a manager who got a preseason, gave everybody a whole lot of hope, but now is just, I think really just trying to assert himself and throw his weight around, and that's Fonseca. And do you think that, let me ask you this, is this having a damning effect on Milan, or is this going to pay off long-term that players are going to have to get in line and they're going to have to work to be at their top form? Because I understand what Fonseca is doing or what he's trying to do. I don't know if coming in and singling out one of your star players is the right way to go about it. What do you think?
If the intention is to sell all your best players and get rid of them and start over, then yes, he is going to succeed. He's making this about him and not about the club. It's one thing if you're at a smaller club to do this and try to assert your dominance. You are now at a much bigger club, and so it doesn't work that way. And yeah, you got a star player, and I understand you want to make your point across, but the way he's doing it is not the way, because Leao is one of the most well-loved persons in the locker room and in the league, and you also got Teo Hernandez, who's his best boy, and then you got Magnon. So those are your three best players, and you're trying to ostracize them. It's not the way to do it. I get that he's trying to formulate a plan or make a point, but it's not working. I don't see it working long term. I thought from the beginning that I was worried about this Fonseca hire because of stuff like this, where he's been a perennial. He's been on some teams that are good teams, and he's gotten them in the Champions League discussion, but never above that. It's because of stuff like this, where he does stuff that disrupts the locker room, disrupts your best player, and then it comes back to bite them. The team. I mean, like today, I get it, not starting Pulisic. Maybe he's tired, but no Leao, no Pulisic in the lineup against Napoli, who's the top team in the league. And then you get the Emerson Royale thing's going to be the death of him because he is the worst player on the pitch at all times, it seems like. Yeah. Pavlovic isn't having that great a season as well. And, yeah, it's just one thing after another. Everything he decides, everything he touches turns to pure crap. And it's infuriating to watch as a Milanista. So I don't know, man. I can't see him lasting the whole season. We'll see. I mean,
well, he's going to last the whole season because this is Ibra's guy. Okay,
yeah,
this is who Ibra wanted. So they're going to force this to work.
I don't see the Champions League at this point, though. Do you?
I do. I still do because I think they're going to get their own talent. Okay,
Atalanta's got pretty good talent too, man. Lazio's playing well.
We're going to talk about a couple of teams here shortly that I think that there are enough holes in them that they can't keep up what they're doing. And I think that I still think that Milan have more talent than Fiorentina and Atalanta. Okay, and Lazio. All right, so that's where I fall on that. And I think that the talent will ultimately overcome it and win out. I'm not even thinking about Udinese. Udinese is just, I mean, and I think it, they deserve to be recognized. What they're doing is pretty sensational so far.
Look, I get the idea about like Leao. You have to make sure, Pioli was never disciplinary, and so he has to kind of be that guy. But that old school way, and this is my thinking, old school way of thinking, where you're like, I'm the boss, you do what I say. Like that doesn't fly anymore these days. These guys are almost too fragile, the way these players are these days. And so, yes, you can get him to be the type of player you want, but not make it out in the media and single him out. Like you find a way to work with him in practice and, hey, this is what I want you to do instead of doing this, instead of be like, get the hell out of my team. You're going to be on the bench instead of starting this game. Like it's not working. It's not getting through to the younger players. And so I don't know.
I mean, I think that, and then on top of that, I mean, this Napoli game, you had Reinders suspended, you had Teo suspended.
Four key guys missing for sure.
Tomori wasn't available. Talk that Pulisic was sick. I mean, Fonseca said in the presser after the match that there isn't a problem with Leao and I. Okay, well then what is it? If there isn't a problem, did you want to rest him? Has he been playing too many games and you just decided against the best team in Italy you wanted to rest him? You didn't have a game this weekend against Bologna. That got rescheduled. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens here. I mean, I want to give the benefit of the doubt and continue to give this time. I'm not particular, and I don't think the Champions League performances are a very good account because right off the bat you get Liverpool and you go to Leverkusen. I mean, they did take care of business against Bruges. They got to go to Real Madrid, which is going to be very difficult. But then the rest of the Champions League slate for them is pretty squishy. They should qualify. So I still am going to give it a wait and see with Fonseca. But there better be some substance to what he's doing, and there better be some results starting to pick up with his methods. Or this is going to be a complete abomination, a complete failure. So, so I guess I'm willing to ride this out and give this a little bit more time, and that might be my Milan bias, but you can't be encouraged by what you see. I think part of it is because I think the system that he wants to play, he just doesn't have the players available to him because of the injury to Tammy Abraham. Now, a team that's doing that, Fiorentina.
Yeah, man.